5. Yep. Go.
Okay, we're going to call the October 21st, 2020 Board of Education meeting back to regular session. Everyone silence your electronic devices. We will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Additions and deletions to the agenda since Friday mailing.
The only one missing here is Sue Starr.
Yeah.
She is having a problem with her Wi-Fi. I will keep identifying on who makes motions.
Isn't that her phone there? I thought you said she was going to call in.
Oop. Sue, is that you?
But we have to have the additions and deletions.
Yep. I can help you with that. Hold on. I think I can.
Oh, wait, she mentioned it.
Oh, she did. She put it in the discussion here.
So
6.17. An addition of the solar pilot, which we've discussed at prior board meetings, and the folks we've been working with have agreed to increase their yearly payment to $11,000. So 6.17 with the addition of the solar pilot.
Now 617 is a correction to the Think.
It should be 619.
619 is the addition.
Yes.
Yep, for
Thank
solar.
you.
617 is the correction for Fink, which we had to reject their bid, so now it will be a Beal tractor. Is it for the same amount?
Oh, yes. Yep. She said, no, it'd be for a reduced amount,
No,
I believe.
No, it's for more, and it's because that there was a skid steer and another piece of equipment, and we had specifics on what the door needed to be, and Fink couldn't meet that, so they won a part of it, and Abley won the other part, and the other part is just a few $100s more, but it's the door that we wanted.
So I guess what are we doing with set 17? Are we just changing the vendor who's getting it? And
Yeah,
it's for 13,
changing from 1,200 to 1,323.
And it's for a Valley tractor.
Yep, and it includes the roll door on the skid steer.
Okay. So take out Fink. Okay. So we good with that? I need a motion for the additions, changes. Mr. Ross, Mr. Engel, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Need a motion for the acceptance of the minutes for the October 14th, 2020 BOE meeting. Mr. McFerrin, Mr. Engel, all in favor? Aye. Motion's pass. Now we have presentations. First presentation is going to be Marvin and Company, correct?
Yep. Chris Healy is going to join us momentarily.
They know they have 5 minutes, right?
10 seconds per slide, we told him, Bray.
You're muted, Bill.
Here's my spiel. This is the most riveting stuff you guys will ever hear. If you guys ever have the time, you should come to our finance and audit meetings. They're wonderful.
All right, Chris Healy. we are to that ominous moment, that wonderful moment where you get an opportunity to share out, as Bill has described, some of the information you shared with us at the audit committee meeting. You have the ability to share screen. I don't know, Chris, if you know how to do that. Down in the lower right-hand corner, it says Present Now. And if you wanted to share your screen of any part of your presentation, you're welcome to do so. And you're muted right now, just so you know.
All right, perfect. Can everybody hear me okay? Excellent. Thank you very much. I will spare you any visuals. We went through in detail with the audit committee. So what I'm going to focus on with you all as the full board is just really the highlights, the things that were required to report out to the full board. So before I get started, I just want to say a quick thank you to Joanne, Tiffany, Eileen, the whole team. Certainly a very unusual year, an unusual audit process as far as we normally come out on site once in June for a couple of days, and then we normally come back for our final field work in August, and they did a nice job accommodating us. We actually were able to come pick up information versus being on site and then return that. And then in August, they made sure we had adequate space, to be socially distanced, all that good stuff. So certainly it was an unusual year. So we have the financial statements in a draft format, really just based on timing of some of the information. We're working on getting those finalized as soon as we possibly can. This is not an uncommon thing this year. We're seeing a number of our districts are still, working on finalizing their reports. There was a stretch in September where just about every day there was some new guidance between state aid and changes in the requirements for the single audit. So that really took up a lot of time and effort trying to make sure that everything got changed appropriately, a lot of moving pieces. But we're hopeful to have this wrapped up in the next week or so that for your next meeting, you will have final reports. So if you have any questions on those draft reports, I know they were shared a little bit late, feel free to reach out to myself or Joanne, and we can certainly answer any questions that there may be once you have a chance to go through those in a little bit more detail, if there are any. So I'll go through these reports relatively quickly. The first is required communications with those charged with governance. So this is a letter that's required by audit standards for us to provide to the board. And it lets you know that we audited the financial statements, that management is responsible for those financial statements, including the accounting policies that are described in the first footnote. There were no new accounting policies, no new standards this year. If you recall, last year, I mentioned that there were a number of upcoming standards that were set to take place for the 1920 year. Once COVID hit, all of those standards were pushed out by at least 1 year, some of them longer than that. So you will have some new standards coming down the road here starting next year, but for the 1920 year, there were no new standards adopted. So what that really means is that your statements from the standpoint of form and content are the same from last year to this year. They're very comparable. All financial statements have estimates. As part of our procedures, we consider the reasonableness of those estimates. The most sensitive estimates to your financial statements are the depreciable lives of property, plant, and equipment, your compensated absences, which is your vacation and sick time that's owed to employees, your other post-employment benefits liability, which is your retiree health insurance. That's an actuarial calculation. And then also your net pension asset and liability, which are also actuarial calculations. Those are provided to you by the state. So again, because those items are heavily reliant on judgment and estimation, they're significant to your financial statements, and there are extensive disclosures around all of those items in the footnotes. We encountered no difficulties in dealing with management while performing our audit. There were no corrected or uncorrected misstatements that were, other than those that were trivial. So nothing material to report to you as far as any adjustments. That means is that the reports that you're getting throughout the year are accurate and reflect the best information. So that's a good sign. Disagreements with management. We had no disagreements with management. We're not aware of any consultation with other independent accountants. And the last sections of this letter talk about required supplementary information and some supplemental schedules. Those are required by the uniform guidance and also by the New York State Education Department. We don't provide an opinion on those items, but we do subject them to audit procedures. And so there's some standard language in the letter related to that. The next report that I'll go through is the actual audit report. So this would be on pages 1, 2, and 3 of the draft financial statements. We have audited the financial statements of the governmental activities in each major fund of the district and the related footnotes. Management is responsible for those financial statements, including the preparation and fair presentation. We're responsible to audit and express an opinion on those financial statements based on our audit, which we conduct in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards. We will be issuing an unmodified opinion, which says that we believe that the district financial statements fairly present in all material respects the financial condition of the district. So that's the clean opinion that you're looking for on your financial statements. And then again, there's some more language in this report that talks about your supplemental information, which is again standard language that's required to be in that report.
Hey, Bob.
The next report is the report on internal control over financial reporting and non-compliance in accordance with government auditing standards. So this report is one that we issue to any client that we audit in accordance with government auditing standards. So any government or municipality. This letter lets you know that during the course of our audit, we consider your internal controls, including internal controls over compliance, as a means to help us plan and perform the audit, but not to express an opinion on the internal controls. We also consider compliance with laws and regulations. And if there are any items that we come across through our audit, we will disclose those to you. We have one item in this section, which is labeled in the report non-compliance material to the financial statements. And this is related to the district being in excess of the 4% limitation on fund balance. The actual percentage for the 1920 year is 11.14%, which sounds like a big difference there. But one thing I want to point out here is that this is not uncommon this year. Either we're seeing a lot of districts elect to remain above the 4% with all of the uncertainty that's out there in terms of state aid and budget cuts. It's something we're seeing a little bit more commonly. Once you put the money into reserves, which would reduce that percentage over the 4%, it really becomes more difficult to utilize those funds. So it's a much more conservative approach, especially in times of uncertainty, to leave that money in the unassigned fund balance where you can get to it. That being said, it's still New York State law for you to be below that. There's really no ramifications for that at this time. OSC may come in and tell you that you shouldn't be over 4%, but there's really no other penalties associated with that. So again, I think that's a conservative move given all the uncertainty that we're seeing right now. And the last thing I want to just add about that is that there has been some recent push by the Association of School Business Officials, as well as I believe the Association of Superintendents, to try to get that percentage raised, hopefully within the next year. There's been a push to move that to either 6 or 8%. Which would allow districts to hang on to more of that fund balance, which would really help out, in times where there's some economic downturn or we go through some unprecedented events like we have been. So we are tracking that, and if we become aware of anything, we will certainly pass that information along to Joanne and the team. The final report as it relates to the district financial statements is the report on compliance for each major program and on internal control over compliance required by the uniform guidance. So the uniform guidance is your single audit. It's your federal awards. We audited the district's compliance with the types of compliance requirements that are described in the OMB compliance supplement that could have a direct and material effect on the district's major federal programs. The major program for the 1920 year was the Child Nutrition Cluster. So that's the program where we perform testing. Management is responsible for compliance with the laws, regulations, in terms of that program. We are responsible to audit and express an opinion on the district's compliance as it relates to the uniform guidance. And we believe that the district complied in all material respects with the requirements that could have a direct and material effect on the major program. So that's a clean opinion on the single audit for your child nutrition program. There's another section in that report that's with the heading Report on Internal Control over Compliance. So again, similar to the other reports, we consider the district's internal control. This time it's referring to internal control over compliance specific to the uniform guidance, but not for the purpose of expressing an opinion. We would, however, report to you any items that we come across. And we do have one item this year to report as a significant deficiency, and that relates to eligibility in the title or in the child nutrition program. There was one application for free and reduced meals that was improperly denied. The household should have qualified for reduced price meals, but the household was denied. The district has since refunded the household. There are no question costs associated with this finding due to the fact that the household was denied, and not if you go the other way, if you improperly approve somebody, then you're spending federal dollars that you shouldn't have spent. So that's more of that probably would have risen to a higher level of a finding. But because of the fact that you didn't spend federal dollars that you weren't supposed to, we reported this as a significant deficiency. I also want to note here that we did test all of the applications. Usually once we find one error or exception, we expand our testing. In your case, we ended up testing the remaining applications, and this was the only item that we had. And if I remember correctly, Joanne, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was under $75. It was not a significant amount. So that's also just something to be aware of. That's really all the reports on the district financial statements. We also audited your extra classroom activity fund as required. I just want to point out here, the extra classroom activity fund is in accordance with the cash basis of accounting. We will be issuing an unmodified opinion, again, which is a clean opinion that you're looking for. We did have a number of findings related to this. I would say that the number of findings has decreased over prior years, which is certainly a good sign. Those findings, again, are not impacting our report, but are really there in relation to what the state education department says is best practice. We know that anytime you have students involved, there's really going to be it's not going to be a perfect system. You're going to have some items that are missing a sign off here and there, that sort of thing. So nothing that I would say is out of the ordinary in terms of those findings, which again, were all discussed with the committee. The last thing I know I briefly touched on earlier was the new standards. I just want to mention here that we do believe that there's going to be some changes to the way that the extra classroom activity funds, as well as your other trust and agency funds, your scholarship funds. We do believe there's going to be a change to the way those need to be reported next year. So there's going to be some, it's not that significant, I don't think, but your reports will look a little bit different. You may have a few less pages, which is actually kind of refreshing for once. But we still don't have the guidance from the state as far as where that information will end up being reported. Essentially, the standard is saying that those items no longer qualify to be treated as fiduciary activities because the district has such a significant role in overseeing all of those items that they're not really fiduciary. So it's most likely that those items will move to the general fund. And again, we're monitoring that as well. And as soon as we hear something further, we will pass that along to Joanne and the team. So I know I just went through a lot very quickly, or I tried to be very quick anyways. Is there any questions? All right, well, that's all I have for you. I will let you guys get on to the rest of your agenda. Again, feel free to reach out. My contact information, my email address is cjh@marvincpa.com. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and we'll get the reports finalized, as soon as possible. And thank you for your time.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, now we have another presentation, correct? From our architect. He's still with us.
He was here, he left. He'll be back.
Yep. I'll call him back in.
Yep, and I also invited Bill Schramm to be here too, because he's also been working closely with John Sharkey from Rhinebeck.
John will be joining us momentarily. There he is.
Hi, John.
You're on mute. It automatically mutes you. As a reminder, John, if you wanted to present anything as a component of your discussion with us tonight, in the lower right-hand corner, there's a box that says Present Now, and you can share a tab or your entire screen.
Okay.
Great.
All right. So I think Peter Weiss from ME Engineering might be on the phone, I believe.
We do have a phone number, a 516 number. That's probably him.
Yeah, that's him. Yeah, just want to let you know he was going to be in there. Okay. You want me to get started?
Sure.
Okay. So just wanted to give you a quick update. First of all, I took a look at the SED website regarding the 2020 building condition survey. Your survey's due this year. They actually changed the regulations, so we have until December 31st to do all the work inside the buildings, but it doesn't have to be filed until March 1st of next year, which gives us a lot of time to go through what we found.
John,
yes.
John, we have some experienced board members and we have some relatively new board members. Can you quickly talk about the purpose and the timeline of a building condition survey, just to give us a framework of why we have to do this at all and what the expected outcome is?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. The State Education Department requires a building condition survey from every school district. It used to be on a 5-year cycle. Every 5 years, the schools would have to hire architects and engineers to go through their buildings, look at all the systems, take a look at health, safety, structural, any items in the buildings, as well as program improvements that districts are trying to look forward to doing. That was in a 5-year cycle, which caused a lot of chaos because every school district in New York would file their surveys at the same time, and their system crashed pretty much every year or every 5 years. So this time they've broken it out by district pretty much randomly. You guys are the first district for 2020, along with a few others, and then they're staggering them now over 5 years to make things a little bit easier, which makes a lot of sense. So
and we were fortunate. This kind of fit into our cycle already. There are some districts that didn't fit into their cycle, so I feel we're very comfortable with where we are right now.
Yep. So the form itself actually has, let's see, 129 questions that have to be filled out. And basically they ask us to look at all systems, HVAC, site work, storm drainage, everything outside the building, everything inside the building. and then come up with a summary of the building as far as aesthetics and other things. And then,
John, I'm going to add one more thing.
Yeah.
If you weren't going to get to it, the work of a building condition survey is very foundational to any future construction projects that the school district will undergo. So
Right.
there's a very legitimized, there's a SED reason, and there's a very legitimized reason why it's important for us to go through this process.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, for SED's purposes, the reason for their building condition survey being done is they want to know how much a school district's going to spend over the next 5 years, so that they can budget, do their budgets over the next 5 years. But the building condition survey is a great tool for what we're going to do for the district is start working on prioritization of what's important, and then start working into a 5-year plan. So we'll have a spreadsheet showing, what could potentially be done next year and over the next 5 years to try to, tackle some of these items. So I am going to attempt to bring up one of those slides now. Let's see if that happens to work. Oh. Are you able to see that?
I don't see anything yet.
Yeah.
You.
Yep, you have 3 choices, John. You can present your entire screen, a window, or a Chrome tab. It's probably safest for you to share your entire screen if you're not afraid to do that. Yep. And then in that way, you can display anything that you need to, whether it's a PowerPoint presentation or a Chrome tab, any of those fine.
All right, so I'm going to see if this works here. So were you able to see that?
No, sir.
No.
Hey, John, what's the format?
It's it's a PDF.
I'll open it.
Oh, okay.
I can open it, and then he can speak to it.
Oh,
Give me
okay.
just 1 second, please.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it's... I've done it on Zoom. This is a little different.
Ta-da! It's our first time not using Zoom, John, so way to make it look smooth.
Oh, okay.
It's hard to believe we have no practice.
Oh, that's good. There you go.
Ah! Joanne, what you want to do is you want to open it up as a PDF document, and there you go. Thank you. That's better.
Okay.
You can even zoom bigger because we really need just the left-hand side.
Is that big enough? Can you see it?
Yeah, if we can, is it possible to scroll over to the left a little bit?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
You go, Joanne, if you can go a little bit bigger, that would be great. Keep going.
There you go. Keep going.
That's as big as it goes.
All right, perfect.
And scroll to the left a little bit more, and we're good. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. So what we've done is we've taken the items from the 129 items from the SED spreadsheet and basically put them into our own spreadsheet because it's much easier to read, and this will be like a running tally of what we've seen in the district. So
hey, John,
yes.
Can I ask you to pause? I'm sorry, one more second.
Yeah.
Just for members of the board, if you move your cursor over the presentation and you click on the little thing that looks like a push pin, that'll make it full screen so you can see it a little bigger. It says pin to screen. That'll make you just be able to see the presentation. Okay, John, go ahead.
Okay. So so we basically took the information from the building condition survey forms and put them into a spreadsheet for each school. If you look at the top there, this one is for the senior high school. And we took the SED numbers in that column on the left. Those are the questions from their forms. So it kind of makes it like an easy format to look at. Some of the items are minor. So what we did is we put those in there. For instance, the first one, number 43, was question about site electrical. At the high school, there were some panel boards that weren't completed, and we had a budget of $42,000 to complete that work. So this is kind of like a snapshot of each building to kind of give you an idea of what we've seen so far. Again, this is a draft preliminary. This is our first, pass through. We have to sit down with the committees and the construction committees and just verify everything and go through it one more time. But as you go down the list, you'll see that we have some site features, reconstruct the parking lot, big number there, but we include everything. So all this information would go into the SED spreadsheets. The items there on the red on the bottom, those are items that are more aesthetics. SED really doesn't care about that, but we put them in there just because we saw some things there that, the district might possibly want to do just to make the building look a little bit better. And then the column where it says U or F, the building condition survey requires every school to be listed satisfactory, unsatisfactory, or failing. And unfortunately, the way SED sets it up is if you have one unit ventilator in a school that's not working, you have to list the whole building as unsatisfactory because that's that category. It's a very arcane way of doing it, but that's the requirement. So we can talk about that a little bit more as we go through the committees to see. The district's been doing a great job, maintaining the equipment. Schools look great, but a lot of the equipment's getting older. So those are the kind of things we're taking a look at. Joanne, if you want to scroll to the next one, we could take a look at the middle school. Middle school, pretty much the same kind of items that we took a look at. Again, at the bottom there in the red, we have some other items that, could be done in-house or doesn't need to be done. But we wanted to get them on the list there just as part of a discussion. So as we do these, we'll keep adding things to the list and then we prioritize. If you look at the columns to the right, there's a prioritization schedule and says, all right, once we agree, what's important, what's number one, what's number two, number three, and then number four, is it a capital project or is it going to be done in-house if you have some capital reserve or some other ways to do it. So that's how we start working into your long-range plan, for over 5 years. So the rest of the forms are each school. Peter, I see you there. I think you're muted, but if you want to talk a little bit about some of the major items were the unit ventilators and ventilation at some of the schools. If you want to talk a little bit about what you saw there. Nope, still muted. Yeah, he's not.
Bottom of your screen, Peter, just click on the microphone on the lower center left.
Okay, now we're
there. You go. Yeah.
All right. Sorry about that. I had a little trouble getting on the internet today. So
we were just talking about looking at these forms and what kind of you saw as far as unit ventilators and ventilation in the schools. Just a brief summary of what you saw and what you think is the path.
Yeah, the majority of these unit ventilators have exceeded their life expectancy. Some were installed back in 1998. Many were around 2004. Their lifespan is just beyond repair, or they're better off to be replaced. The technology now is they have ECM motors, which are a little more efficient, and they can handle the filtration that's we're finding is required these days, especially with the COVID and everything else. So it's our recommendation that they are replaced.
Okay. So, and again, the district's been doing, I think Peter would agree, a great job maintaining these things and keeping them running, but at some point they're all the same age. So if one goes, they're going to start, it's going to be like a domino effect. So we can talk about that a little bit more as we go through the process. So that's elementary, A.W. Becker, a lot of the same items. Your two schools, A.W. Becker and Ravena-Coeymans are almost identical. So the items you see on one are almost the same as the items on the other. So we've gone through those. We've also gone through the transportation facility and the warehouse, and not too much going on in those two facilities. Other than the biggest number there was a request to see what it would cost to repave the parking lot where the buses are parked. It's all gravel, and then there's some issues with the driveway. So we put a number to that just for discussion. Joanne, if you want to pull up the other form, the form by building or by district. Ooh, that's nice.
You'll notice that, as the first swing through, the work of the architects is to look at the major mechanicals. For instance, when any of us were to have a structural inspection on a home we were about to purchase, it would look at the major mechanicals and the infrastructure to ensure that we're buying a home that is structurally sound. As we are frequently come back to, the things that Peter and John and their colleagues were looking at were not the glamorous things. They were the things that make sure that the building operations are able to be maintained. Right. And as John keeps saying, as we work through this kind of information with committees, what we're able to do is we're able to blend what the district and programs need with those things that are the major mechanicals that need to be improved in order to continue safe egress, safe daily operations and things like that. So know that it wasn't John, Peter, and the group's responsibility to figure out and guess what we need programmatically, but instead they're really looking at it with a surgeon's eye to determine what we need to do to keep our doors open.
Right. Yeah, and believe it or not, part of the SCD building condition survey, they really don't care about programming or anything. They're more interested in infrastructure. As part of our walkthrough and as part of our 5-year plan, we're going to meet with the district and all the representatives to talk about what your educational plans are as well. That's just as important as the building. So we want to make sure we do that as part of this whole process. So
there you go.
All set?
Yep.
So the next form is actually your district report card. It's basically takes all the I don't see any A's yet, but we're getting there. We took all your buildings and put them on one sheet so that it's kind of like a snapshot of the entire district. A lot of times when you're flipping through forms, it's hard to keep track of everything. So this is a form that we use that takes all the buildings, puts all the information on it as far as, building numbers, the year built, square footage, number of students. It's a great way to just see, anybody on the board could have a copy of this. If somebody in the district has a question, there's a lot of information on there. So we took all the numbers from the other sheets that we just looked at and put them onto this sheet to come up with a total for the entire district. So if you look at line 28, basically in 2015, your building condition survey said that the district had about roughly $18 million worth of need. We've gone through now and we're down around somewhere around $12 million worth of need if you replaced everything on those lists. And there's quite a lot on there, so we just want to show everything, and then as we prioritize, you find out what you actually want to do. But those blue numbers are the amounts per building per school that is on the other spreadsheets. So it kind of gives you a good summary of where everything's at. And if you scroll down through that list, it basically talks about all the site features, building structure, everything that we've seen, and just basically comes to a summary at the bottom. And I think it's just a great document to have that you can carry around and have a good idea of what needs to be done. And again, this is just infrastructure right now. Once we get into, if you look at the bottom, there's some information about program improvements that we have to talk about a little bit later. So usually almost every project or every BCS, there's site improvements, sports programs, arts, things like that get added in.
Your line 39 for water doesn't seem to be working. Didn't add up.
30. Wow, that's good. Let's see.
We did share the presentation with the board earlier, so Bray wasn't lightning quick on the scroll. He actually has the presentation, so he's able to look at it.
Oh, okay. All right. We'll take a look at it. Again, this
I
is
didn't
a
look at
draft.
it before.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, this is just the first draft. We have to sit down and go through everything again. But just want to kind of give you an idea where we're at. All those items listed in the third column as H's. That's what SED considers a health issue. So if you have any systems under those H's, they make your building unsatisfactory. Like I said, even if it's just one unit ventilator, or I think one of the schools needed some carbon monoxide detectors, need a boiler room, so that makes the building unsatisfactory. So we'll discuss that a little bit further. So that's kind of the summary of where we're at. We've been through all the buildings. I do have to go back through the press box. For whatever reason, that wasn't done in the last building condition survey. So I got to get a good look in there and see what's going on with that building. I believe you still use it as a press box. It's not just storage.
Yeah, but it probably wasn't done because you don't want to know.
Yeah, no, I've seen a few community press boxes. So we'll take a look anyway and see what we need to do there. So I think the next step is going to be to sit down with the whatever committees you want us to sit down with and go through this, line by line, talk about what we saw, review the budgets again, and probably get together with Bill and walk through the buildings, make sure we picked up everything and get to a more finalized document of this. And then once we're in agreement with that, we get to fill out 6 copies of that 129-page building condition survey. Did you, Joanne, we'll talk about phase 3 a little bit, or?
Yeah, we can talk about phase 3, but I think what's important to note is when we have this information, the next thing we have to do is identify committees and really go through everything that John has brought up and identified in the building condition survey, and then categorize it as how are we going to tackle that? Is it going to be part of a larger project? Is it going to be a capital outlay project? Could we use some of our Lafarge beautification project dollars for those type of events or things that we need to do? And I think that's, it's been a long time since we've had a building condition survey. We did a lot of work. We're still in the middle of doing some work, but I think those are the logical next steps. It doesn't hurt to talk about phase 3. We'll be able to put the numbers to that and go through that as well. John, do you want me to pull up that one sketch?
If you can, I'll just
drawing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, we got a copy of your previous architect's drawings that were sent up to SED, and we took a look at some of the renovations they were doing. We think we could, we haven't met with obviously the staff and the principals, but we think we can reduce the scope quite a bit and still get, what they were looking to do. I can show you on the attached drawing. Okay, thank you. So the drawings that we received for the original scope, if you look at the floor plan drawing there, it's the plan on the bottom there that's shaded. They were basically at both elementary schools, we're going to come in and basically renovate the entire wing there, from the entry all the way back to past the health, and then there's a computer classroom and a PT classroom. So that was going to be a gut renovation, total renovation of the entire spaces. And it seems like with the brief conversations we've had that the intent was to make the entry vestibule bigger, enclose the copy room, and make the nurses, and bring a conference room next to the principal's office. Those were the major, wants as part of that scope. So the upper plan basically does that and reduces, so the shaded areas on the upper plan are the areas that would get renovated. So it cuts the renovation back quite a bit. And I think pretty much achieves what you were looking to do. We'll have to sit down and go through it. We know there's ventilation issues in there that we're taking care of. Peter's already taken a look at that. The original drawings had some significant ductwork coming down from the roof, and running along the corridor ceiling or the room ceilings. We think if we use these split system ceiling cassettes, that you could do it very unobtrusively, bring in fresh air and air conditioning, and make it work a little bit better. So that's kind of where we're at with that scope. We'll sit down at some point with the staff and principal and district and see, if this is acceptable and what else we need to do. So that's kind of where we're at on the phase 3 scope. I know there was also some renovations to some home and careers rooms that were basically going to be laid out as traditional home and careers rooms that we're looking more towards, a teaching classroom, more culinary type equipment and things like that I'm getting some information from some local suppliers. So we're moving down that path as well. Now we should have some good information on that in another month or so. And I think that's about it. Any questions, comments? You're right about line 39. Thank you.
Brian, are there things that appeared on this survey that we've had in the past and it's just now kind of been elevated to a higher level?
There's a combination of both. There are some things that were mentioned in the last survey, and we prioritized when we started to blend in the programmatic needs. I think some things were pushed aside. If all of you, to some extent, all of you that were on the board 5-6 years ago, you went through this process before. You saw that, like, the list of desires, by the time we got through to the combination of the ones like John has just presented and the ones that were wanted through committee, it was a list of like 300 items. So very hard prioritization. The one thing I do like about what John's presented tonight is it's very focused. It's short and focused. Each building has 20 to 25 lines that is easily identifiable. And I would suggest that when we start with committees, and we'll start with buildings and grounds, and we will expand to a construction, a foreshadowing, I don't know what you want to call it, construction committee. And what I would suggest is that we actually start on these items that John's presented prior to getting to our greatest dreams and wishes. It is easy for all of us to get caught up in the glamour of the things that we think would be best for our students in the moment. If our lights go out or the heat stops working, it doesn't matter what else we do. So it's a really clean, concise way to go through this process. But yeah, Tina, there's a lot of things that were mentioned in the last process, but we decided at the time to prioritize differently.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the next steps will be to go through every single thing on the list once it's final. It's nice that it's not due until March, which gives the board and any committees enough time to be able to go through, identify, again, address those issues that make us John, could you speak to what happens when we have an unsatisfactory and it's on a building condition survey?
Well, nothing really. It depends on the district. Some districts get a little worried when they see a building says it's unsatisfactory, even if it's just one item. But if you list the building satisfactory and then you go to the SED with a capital project, then they could potentially come back and say, well, you said your building was okay. Why do you need to do this kind of work? So we'll have that discussion a little bit more. As far as aid or anything else with SED, it doesn't mean anything at all. It's just a label that they give that they want. If it's a health and safety item, they would say, for instance, if you want to go out and build a new gym, they would come back to the survey and say, well, no, you're not building a new gym until you take care of your unit ventilators, that kind of thing, which I'm sure the district would want to do anyway.
And I think you can take this information that's presented and we can align it so we can determine what's a priority, what has to be done, what's aidable, how can we pay for it? Would it be part of a larger borrowing? Would it be something in-house? We always talk about capital outlay money, and those would be the next steps for us to form committees, starting with building and grounds and going out from there. Phase 3, we already have a committee for that. We can reconvene and go through some of the updates with that on total dollars and how do we begin that. And then the next piece of it is to address what we need to do programmatically and structurally as a result of the building condition survey. And again, I make columns. I can see it very clearly. You can identify how important is this? Where does it rank? 1, 2, 3. We did that a little bit. I saw that when I started here in this big project we're in the middle of, or almost, we're wrapping up. But those are the next steps. This is what we have to do to prepare for it. I'm actually glad that we get this building condition survey done sooner and we were pushed off because it's a great framework for everything we're going to need to do going forward. It lays the groundwork for us.
Yep. Yeah, and it's nice that SED pushed off the deadline to submit because most districts their architects go through in the summertime. So you're looking at univentilators when it's beautiful outside. So we'll have the opportunity when you get into heating season to get a better look at things.
So are we going to prioritize these things during the building condition survey, or is that something like once we get to committee and do afterwards?
Yeah,
I mean, Joanne, I think in the last project we had things that said priority 1, priority 2, priority 3, and then we decided how much money we had. But also I can see in this is, what's going to happen in phase 3 of the construction that we still have, and then what project we can just do in-house or without part of a big building project.
Right. Yeah, as far as the building condition survey for SED, they don't ask you to prioritize, but we absolutely will use this to do that. We'll have another column that says, expenditures, the money that you get from the power plant. We can put things in that column, and we can put things in the column for items that the district can take care of. So everything's categorized, and we don't let anything drop off the list because once it's on there, it's got to get put under some category, whether it's deferred more than 5 years or not.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay.
All right.
All right. I think we're good.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we have no hearings and petitions. I need a motion for one or all of the business considerations.
Make a motion for all.
Okay. Do we have a second, Mr. McFerrin? Any discussion on these? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion's pass. I need a motion for one or all of the personnel considerations.
Motion for all again.
Okay, second, Mr. McFerrin. Any discussion?
Congratulations on your retirement.
Oh, that is correct. 7.3. The Board of Education accepts with regret the retirement of Lauren Young, art teacher, effective June 30th, 2021.
Well, I guess she made up her mind that time.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Some of the other ones, actually, there were a few donations under the business considerations that we should probably mention. The A.W. Becker PTA, the middle school PTO, donation of amounts, the Peter B. PTO. Did I get them all?
State telephone,
Seth?
state telephone backpack program.
Correct.
There's a bunch of them for backpack.
Okay.
I assume we send them all a letter, right?
Yeah, State Telephone Company, National Bank of Coxsackie, and the Chapter 421 Woodman Life all for the backpack program. Does the school send them letters or thank you letters?
We do. Yep.
Great. We thank you for all those donations. Okay. Special reports. I have nothing. Any other Board of Ed members want to have anything to report? We will turn it over to Dr. Bailey.
I wanted to report out on some of the folks who came to the podium last week to talk about hearings and petitions issues. One of them was a discussion about clubs. As we discussed during the meeting last week, we sent out a solicitation to all of our staff who have traditionally run our clubs and asked them to share out which clubs would be able to be accomplished virtually, and we expect to be able to move to that in November. We also had a representative of our swim community come to the podium. I spoke directly to him to talk about the future of our access to the pool. Right now, we're definitive about using the pool for our own varsity athletes. And we will reconsider in November about how we move forward in potentially allowing younger students to access the pool as well, but it will take some time. We want to make sure we're really good at what we're doing right now before we do so. We had a parent talk to us about fifth grade and access to in-person specials like PE, music, and art. They were connected with the middle school principal, so they're having some discussions there about those concerns. And we had one person come up and talk about school schedule and the possibility of practicing a fully remote day for students. I wanted to remind everybody, one of the reasons why we end up with a shortened schedule is I say the word fragile frequently when I describe reopening at all. And one of the reasons why we went with a compressed schedule was because we initially anticipated having to do a high school, middle school start time, a Peter B start time, and a Becker start time. Because of parents who are willing to drive and those families who committed to fully remote instruction, we're able to combine Peter B and Becker. We've just gone through our first phase of allowing folks to re-enter from complete remote instruction. We're going to reevaluate in the first few weeks of November and see where we are as far as schedule to determine whether or not we can safely adjust in any way. In other words, the potential of going back to a full day schedule. The limitation is we have to maintain social distancing on buses. We know we've already secured the classrooms and teachers to do the work that needs to happen, but if we can't transport kids, we won't be able to adjust the schedule in any way. But we will be reconsidering that, and it's fair to note that in the event that we make any changes, we won't do so without a minimum of 30 days notice for families. And in all honesty, I think if we were to extend the day at any time, it would help families, not harm them. So I think it would be helpful. We provide not only instruction, we provide essential childcare for people during the day. But, it is a difficult decision for us to get to because we have a lot of concerns about whether or not we'll be able to continue providing the program as we've promised right now.
Brian, can you, I'm sorry to bother, just can you clarify that a little bit? When you talk about going in full time, are you talking about everybody every day, or are you talking about running a full day schedule?
Thanks, Peter. I'm glad you asked that. So we are still bound by the limitations of the maximum in a classroom. So when I say change in schedule, I just mean return to a full day. We would still have cohorts in grades 7 through 12, different groups of kids coming in on alternating days. But, hypothetically returning to a 9 to 3:30 at the elementary and a 7:30 to 2:05 at the high school, middle school. But the planets would have to align for us to do it. But we wanted to clearly state that it's not off the table, but it's something that we will have to do a lot of research on before we get to that point. And the only other thing I was going to talk about as part of the hearings and petitions was the suggestion that we practice a fully remote day. I know that a couple of our neighboring districts have done that in the last couple of weeks. In other words, they've closed school completely on a Friday or a Monday and had everyone go to school virtually because we all know due to COVID, either locally in our schools or due to COVID regionally, we may end up having to close for a day or more. We already do have plans in motion for our students in grades 5 through 12 to potentially go fully remote on November 3rd, which is election day. It's scheduled as a professional development day for our staff, as a shortened day. And I will let you know, with the way that we have transportation, there's a very good chance that the only way we'll be able to do a shortened day is by having our grades 5 through 12 go fully remote. That's good practice for them to do that. And as we talked about last week, we still we have some plans in place for asynchronous instruction for our grades K through 4. That will be in place, but we've ordered some equipment in order to allow our K through 4 students to be able to bring their technology home. That's the part that's going to be really important, and we'll have to be practicing a fully remote K4 day for those students sometime in the near future. Knowing that childcare is going to be extremely important for them, we will give ample notice if and when we do that for our K4 children. Any questions about that? That was the hearing petitions. The last two are really quick. I forgot to mention last time, we got a wonderful thank you letter and a certificate from Kindness for Kids, which is a program that was formerly known as the Matthew Project. They provide meals for our local community children in the summertime. They provided 2,100 meals to our children this summer, which is awesome. Very difficult to do in the realm of COVID, but they're very gracious. That's through Abounding Love, right? Does that sound right? Yeah, through Abounding Love community, and we're very grateful both for their work and for their recognition of the district. And we have our high school open house under our belt. Last night were the 2 elementary open houses, and they've been virtual open houses, and tomorrow night is the middle school open house, which premieres at 6:30 p.m. That link to the middle school open house will be available on our district webpage, our middle school webpage, in our events, in the calendar invites, in our live stream, and in our newsfeed. So you go to any of those and you'll be able to click on a link that'll bring you to those open houses. That is it.
Okay, we will turn it over to Mr. Engelhardt.
Because we're presentation heavy tonight, I'm going to forego the grants presentation, if that's okay with you.
Bray's not sure.
What I'll do is I really want you to be able to see the amount of effort and time we're putting into these community partnerships and these grants. So I'm thinking creatively about maybe just recording my presentation and putting it on the website, so that way it's available to the public as well as to the board. So look forward to that. In addition to Dr. Bailey's comments, which he checked off a lot on my list, a couple of weeks ago, we got notification that 2 of our RCS seniors, Jared Lamson and Tyler Levine, Jared plays clarinet and Tyler plays trumpet, have been selected for the 2020 NISMA All-Star Symphonic Band.
All-State,
I'm sorry. So they're going to... Mr. Fatuzzo is working with our communications to put out some more details around that. And they're looking at maybe doing a virtual event at some point for not only for the board, but for our community. So we're excited, and we want to send congratulations to those students. The last thing is that this past week, our Google Enterprise received some additional activities within Google Meet, which we're excited about utilizing with students. So now, just like Zoom, Google Meet for RCS students can have breakout rooms. So we'd be able to do things like small group instruction. There's a question and answer component, a polling component. It generates attendance for us. And then there's also additional security for the teacher who's hosting it. So no longer can, or it'll be harder for students to do any sort of bombing, like a Zoom bomb type of deal. you'll have to be allowed into the Google Meet, even if you have the link or not. So we're looking forward to utilizing a lot of those tools for instruction and for our safety. And that's really it. Dr. Bailey talked about 5th grade. I just want to address that as well. We are meeting with special area teachers and principals to come up with some creative ways to get our students outside, especially for 5th grade, and to get some exercise. So more details on that are forthcoming.
The tough thing is we promised our 5th grade families a 5th grade experience as though they were resident in their elementary schools. And with all the confines of moving students and then having to really stress our deployment of staff has made it difficult to deliver on that promise. So we're going to do better.
And we want, if families have feedback or challenges or concerns, please reach out to your teacher, to your child's teacher directly. Feedback during this time is important. Encourage your child to advocate for him or herself. And if you're not getting what you need, then feel free to reach out to the building principal or to other administration. But that first line of defense is the classroom teacher. So reach out to them, please.
It works.
That's great. Thank you. Mrs. Moran?
Yep, I only have a couple things I want to update everybody on. First of all, Chris Healy went over a very brief review of the financial statements. I know that's riveting material. Every time you guys get it, you read it straight through. I know you do. I apologize. Again, they just came out to us today. I got them out to you. They're still in their draft form. You will be acting on those on the November 4th meeting. We'll be sending them out as the final financial statements. I'll send them to you. I don't want you to miss out on that reading opportunity. I am very relieved, believe it or not, that we're well underway with the building condition survey. That gives us lays the groundwork for us to develop a 5-year plan for our facility and what we need to make the best decisions for ourselves infrastructure-wise and programmatically. So that is really, I love that. The only big thing that I think that you guys would want to know from a Board of Education point of view, the last time we did a tagging inventory program was in 2008, which means we go in and we go through all of our assets, anything that has a depreciation value. We're going to be doing that this year. We meant to do it last year. COVID disrupted that. So that will begin on Monday. And there'll be somebody in-house that'll come out to us from Asset Works. They'll go through the attestation every day. They'll have their temperature taken every day, and they will be assigned along with one of our staff members in O&M, and they'll go through every building. So in the event that our district suffers some type of catastrophic loss, we know that we are insured for the correct amount, values on all of our property, whether it be internal or external, and we give it a depreciation value, which again is a part of the financial statements. And if we have this automated, right now we keep it in a spreadsheet and it's crazy. This will be automated and hopefully result in less of a delay. Very often the piece that our Marvin is waiting on is our depreciation schedule for our equipment. So that should improve that. So maybe there won't be as much of a delay. We won't have to wait on getting that data together. And other than that, that's all I have right now.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any new business that anybody would like to bring up? Anything from old business? Okay. BOE committee reports, policy committee, C&I committee. Do either one of you have anything to bring up?
So we met last two Tuesdays ago, or last Wednesday. I'm sorry, I lose track of days at this point. We met last week, curriculum instruction remotely, and just went over a lot of nuts and bolts of how things have started out the year. One important takeaway, and Fred, I don't know if you want to expand upon it with more detail, was the idea of a new offering in the area of was it
AP art course.
right, AP art course, in a specialty of photography. So I don't know, Fred, if you want to give them some more detail about some of the pre-work that the students would need to do to entertain that, but it sounded like a great offering.
Miss Wallace has been really dynamic with bolstering the art program at our high school. So this course would be for juniors and seniors. They would have to have prerequisites. And I'd have to look at the course offerings again, unless Ms. Shackleton, you can remember as well. Because we signed it, actually, we started this process last year, and with COVID, it didn't get to our table until now. And we'll bring it to you for formal approval at our next board meeting. But they have had an increase in student engagement and student involvement around photography, and she felt like this would be a really great next step for them to be able to increase their portfolio. She's taken our 5-year goal around career readiness and already thinking about and really encouraging students to think about careers in tech and digital media. So she's really excited. She's worked as part of my foregone presentation. She's worked really closely with a lot of grant writers to get equipment. We have cameras available. So we're really excited to offer this to our students.
Okay, great. Policy committee. I know we have a bunch of policies up for first reading. It doesn't look like we have to take any action for any of these. Audit and Finance Committee meeting. I think we've gone over that enough tonight. No more, no hearings and petitions for the second session. Upcoming activities. We have a BOE meeting on November 4th. There's no reason to go to executive session, and we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mrs. Klein, Mr. Ross, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.